We come from the dark, arrive the squirm. We lurch and we limp, we leer and we groan. Fires fill our bellies and rot fills our brains, and fear fills the ones that we hunt in the gloom. Run, run, you shan't escape. We're coming. Hello everybody, Glass Half Dead here, and today I want to talk to you about Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team, and the Gellerpox Infected. And this is a full guide, breakdown, rundown. Look at the data sheets, look at the tacs, look at the ploys, look at the strats, look at the concept of how to play them, break down the data sheets into different ways to run and view and look at all the different models, and then of course also to look at the equipment, which they have a very unique equipment mechanic. So with all of that said, let's get straight into it. Let's not dilly-dally, shall we? Okay, so this is an overview of the Gellerpox Infected. Just super quick, if you just want to get the basics, we can get this done within a minute, hopefully, fingers crossed, and you can get out of here, and then we'll get into a deep dive for everybody else. It's a 15 model team. You don't have to be 15 models. You could in theory be 13, but you won't do that. You will be 15. This includes 4 Hulks. Hulks are the big boys. They are the Custodes level wound. That's 18 wounds in case you're unaware, 19 for your leader. And they are beasts. They hit like trucks. Absolutely amazing. The rules are, all things considered, relatively simple. Like, I don't think, you run forwards. This is an all melee team, essentially. Yes, there's 1 or 2 flamers, but basically, you take Seek and Destroy, and you run forward, and you kill stuff. They have a lot of strong data sheets. For example, the Hulks, it's very obvious why they're good. They hit stuff, they kill them. The way that they balance them is that they then limit using external rules and abilities so that everyone isn't just god tier. So you have strong data sheets, but then with limiting rules. Security, Seek and Destroy. Seek and Destroy is the better one, but just so you know, those are the archetypes. You can, of course, build all of the required models from a single box. That's partly due to the way that Rogue Trader from the last edition of Kill Team was released. But yes, this is a 1-box Kill Team, to the point that there is literally no point to ever buy a second box. And I would argue, if I had to throw down a line in the sand and say, where are these guys going to sit power level? I think they're going to be really good. I don't think they're completely broken OP. I think they're going to be fine, but I think they are going to do well because of how simple they are to play. They are not completely brain dead. Yes, you have to run forwards, but you have to be smart about it. So it's not just brain dead play. And there are some very interesting complications, for example, in the way that their equipment works and their mutoid vermin work, and not your entire team. Your entire team is not able to hold objectives or to tie people up in melee. You have models that do 0-0. That's their damage stat, 0/0. So it's not completely straightforward. But I think that once you go through a guide or two, if this is your team, I think you will understand how they should be played. Okay, and that's kind of the overview done, so I would like to say that check out the timestamps below if you just want to jump straight to the data sheets because you don't care about that, or if you want to check out the ploys that I summarized for you because who could be bothered to actually read ploys, go to those, of course. But I would like to say that the next slide is actually a subscriber-only slide. So if you're not a subscriber, you're not allowed to see it. So if you are a subscriber, however, I would like to give you a big double hello. Wow, so wholesome. Hey, that's double hello subscriber only. So if you are not a subscriber, consider liking, subscribing, leave a comment right now. I also have merch, another channel called Full Scale Wargaming, a podcast called Vantage Point, which, by the way, has just had a huge breakdown, 2 hours of me and another good player, a good player, I'm not another good player, obviously, my bad, discussing Gellerpox Infected and how exactly to run them in much more depth than I'm about to go in here, so check that out. I also have a Discord, which is like the biggest Kill Team Discord, whatever, no biggie. And then, if you're really into what I'm doing, consider checking out my Patreon. Monetary support allows me to continue doing what I'm doing. With that said, let's power through. Okay, This is a pretty simple team. You can take 11 models base. That's what you have to take. Now, most people have already seen on Warcom how the equipment works for the Gellerpox infected. You don't get equipment. You can't give people grenades. You can't give them hot las packs or anything like that. You can't give them meat. Instead, your equipment is the little mutoid vermin, is what they're termed. So you know, the little fly stinger swarms, the sludge grubs, etc. And you can take between 3 and 5 of them depending on what you decide to take. It's the only thing that we've seen like this. It's interesting. When I first saw it, I thought it was super cool. But once I, gave it a little bit of thought, I was like, interesting. An interesting way to do list building that isn't just slot based. And I think it's fine. But I do think that there is also a definitively best pick. Could be wrong, but I think there is. There are no alternative options, I will say. So, there's no gunner. You can't build one of the Hulks a different way. Every model just gets what they get. Your abilities are Techno Curse and Revoltingly Resilient. Revoltingly Resilient is super easy. It's a 5-up, feel no pain. Why isn't it called Disgustingly Resilient? Please don't ask those kind of questions. You are deliberately getting in the way of Games Workshop applying rules bloat and weird keyword weirdness to the game. Please don't ask that. Okay. Techno Curse, however, is that when you are within 3 inches of an enemy model, they get -1 attack dice to their ranged attack, unless it is a glitchling that is within 3 of them, and then the glitchling has to be within 6 inches of that enemy model to get -1 attack dice to their ranged attack. And that's it. Simple. Operatives and Ability, very simple. Okay, let's go to the Tac Ops. Wow, don't you just hate it when you look at a big old block of text and they've written it in this weird technical way? Not to worry, because I've broken it down for you. They have 3 rampant nightmare. If Hulks deal 30 plus wounds to the enemy team, you get 1 VP, and if Hulks deal 50 plus wounds, you get 1 VP. That is a tall order. Let's stop and think about what that actually means. How can you deal 50 wounds? What is that? So in an intercessor team, that is 4 models dead. Are you guaranteed to kill 4 models? In a vet guard team, so a standard human mortal dude team, that is 8 models. You need to kill 8 of their models. With the Hulks, not with the other guys, with the Hulks, you need to kill 8 veteran guardsmen, and you have 4 Hulks. Can you guarantee that? Pestilent Hosts. You kill an enemy and it drops a token. Then at the end of the round, you have to control that token. You don't have to pick it up, you just have to be within 2 inches of it. And then that captures the token, at which point at the end of the round, if you've captured it, you get... if you have as many as a third of the enemy's team, you get 1 VP. If you have half or more, you get a second VP. So, for example, if they are intercessors, that means that they have 6 models. So to capture a third of their team, that means you have to get 2. To get half, you need 3. I think that when you look at it in that kind of terms, I think that both Rampant Nightmare and Pestilent Hosts are probably, honestly, pretty good picks against elite teams. Because really you should be killing 4 of them, and that would score you both of those. Against the more larger teams, hard to say. Personally, I quite like Pestilent Hosts because in general, that is kind of what you do. You will charge someone, kill them, and then you'll just stand there. And nobody really wants to stand near you to try and contest that objective that they've just dropped, that token. So you'll probably be okay. You will probably score that. We then have Tech Infection. You need to action on an objective to infect it. And that's once per objective. If you get 3, there's 1 VP. If you get 4, that's a second VP. Nice. I quite like this one as well. I can't lie, because it ties in quite nicely with an ability that your leader, Volgra Thrice Cursed, has. And I think that actually these are all pretty good Tac Ops. I don't think you would take them all because you can take Seek and Destroy. You would not take all 3 of these when you also have some of the options for Seek and Destroy, but I don't think that these are completely out there. For example, I would probably drop Rampant Nightmare first, and instead, what would I take? Rob and Ransack. Rob and Ransack is so good. Okay, we then go to Strat Ploys. So they have 4 of them, they're all 1 CP. Blessings of Pox. If your defense roll is 7 or more on all of your dice, 1 failed save becomes a success. I think that roughly on 3 dice, for this to have an effect, it's like an 18% chance, I want to say. This is not a good one. This is not a good one. We then get Blessings of Infection. This is in melee. If your missed hit total is 3 or more, 1 fail becomes a success. And as you can see, I put there is an 80% chance of this happening. This is better than having balanced. So what this means is that in general, this is your go-to ability. If you know that one of your hulks is going to charge or be in melee, you want to use Blessings of Infection. Keep that in mind, that's a go-to. That's a CP spender every day. We then get Drawn to the Hum. That's operatives within 6 inches of an objective perform a free dash, and they have to end closer to the objective. But it's plus 1 CP every time you use it. So the first time it's going to cost you 1 CP, then you play it again, it's going to cost you 2 CP, and then a 3, etc. When are you going to use this? This is going to be used when the game starts. There you go. You're probably going to use this turn 1, and then you're probably never going to use it again. It's not worth 2 CP. It's possible I'm wrong on this, and there will be times when actually you want to save this. Maybe this would become a turn 2 play. I could see that as a possibility. I think it's going to depend quite heavily on terrain layouts. But really it's a turn 1 or turn 2 CP spend, and that's it. And you're only using it once, you're not using it both times. We then get Rust Emanations. Enemies within engagement range, not of your vermin, count as injured. So this is pretty nice as well. You have a lot of models, a lot of your Nightmare Hulks that you kind of want to and have the ability to charge into multiple models. This inevitably means that they are going to be able to hit you at +1 because there will be 2 of them up against you. And you probably don't want that to happen. You are big beastie boys, but you can still die. That's just how life goes. You know, we're all mortals, really. We're all fragile beings. However, you pop this, mixed with Blessings of Infection, you become very tanky and very killy, really. Which takes us over to the Tac Ploys. Again, everything 1 CP. Pollute Stockpile. So this is such an interesting one. The first time we've seen the ability to mess with the opponent's equipment selection, right? So you can either select one of your opponent's equipments. It can either cost +1 each time they pick it, or they can only take one of them. For example, I would use the Imperial Navy Breachers Stim equipment. That costs 1 EP, and you can take 10 of them if you want, and that's your EP spent, and everybody gets +1 wound. With this, you can choose to either make it cost 2 EP, so they can only take 5, or you can limit them to only being able to take 1 stim. And then they would have to go back to the drawing board and rethink their equipment. So, interesting. We then have a barge. Now this is, again, a bit of an interesting one. I'll read it and then I'll try and explain. Hulks, your Nightmare Hulks, your big boys, can move through all other operatives. They can charge and normal move when engaged. So what this, essentially, you have fly, just not when you're talking about terrain. Just only when you're thinking about operatives, you can move through them, over them, however you want to term it. This is going to be potentially really big and useful when you want to position yourself against for several reasons. I think there are 2 possible reasons here. One, if you want to position yourself right in the thick of things so that you can hit as many models at the same time, or just stand there and like essentially make, you know, 5-6 models not be able to action for a turn because they'd have to fall back or fight you, and if they fight you, you kill them. So they have to fall back. Like, it could be a really big tempo change like that. Or looking at Seek or Destroy, if you wanted to pick challenge, so whatever, one of your Hulks challenges the enemy leader, or however that works, or one of the enemy's models, you can use Barge so that they cannot hide from you, which is actually pretty good as an idea. We then get Putrescent Demise, 1 mortal wound, or D3 for Hulks, when a friendly operative, not a vermin, is killed within 2 inches. So essentially you get blast, 1 mortal wound, or D3 if you're a Hulk. We then get Frightening Onslaught. It's just a classic. This is a Hulk can fight again if still in engagement range. You use this every time. Yep. If your Hulk is able to kill something else, you pop this bad boy. Unless you're, you know, it's a little tiny dude that you are using to keep yourself in cover from a plasma or something, you pop Frightening Onslaught and you get those kills. We then look at the equipment, because obviously normally I would put the equipment at the end after all of the data sheets, but we have to put it here because you have to understand how equipment works, because equipment in this are operatives. So the first time each of the different mutoid vermin are taken, they cost you 3 EP. Subsequently, after that, they cost you 2 EP. So there are curse mites, icing swarms, and sludge grubs. These mutoid vermin cannot pick up, they cannot perform the pickup action. They are able to fall back for 1 AP instead of 2, but likewise enemies are able to fall back from them for 1 AP, which is very interesting. They cannot control objectives, and they never count for any form of VP, not just direct VP, but also if you ever have to tally something up, like number of kills or number of wounds taken, they never count for any of that. They are, in an odd way, or I would say it's almost best to think of them as a movable token. Okay? They are essentially a token that is on the board that just happens to be a model. That's a good way to think of them, I would say. And with that said, we go into the operatives. Now, if you're not aware, I like to break my operatives down to assault, ranged, tank, and tech. I don't think that just looking at things in a big long list is really helpful. I think you need to look at things in specific ways so that you can kind of understand them. So with that said, first things first, this team does not have any ranged of note, so there are no ranged operatives. He says, but there are, but they're not really. They're just pistols. It doesn't count. Anyway, the Icing Swarm and the Curse Mite, when it comes to your equipment, these are probably the ones you want. You probably want 3 Icing Swarms, followed by 1 Curse Mite. I think that's probably how people are going to flesh this out. Let's look at why. So the Curse Mite, so firstly, you want these guys because they have fly, and they are 3 circle move. The Sludge Grub, who we will talk about next, is more killy than them, but he's only 2 circle move and does not have fly. But let's focus on these guys. So the Curse Mite is a little bit more killy than the Icing Swarm, because in fact the Icing Swarm, he ain't killing nothing. That's all I'm saying. Notice they all have 2 wounds, a 5-up save, 2 defense, and they do not have revoltingly resilient, so they can't even rely on that. If anything hits them, they die. In melee, you know, the lowest melee attack from a guardsman is 2. So they die to a single hit from essentially anything, unless something hits you with splash 1, right? Yeah, so they are GA2. That's something to note as well, though. Let's look at the Curse Mite first. So, Bloodsucking Proboscis. 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, 2-3, Feast, Rending. Terrible. But what does Feast do? Each time this operative fights in combat with this weapon against an enemy operative that has fewer than its starting number of wounds, this weapon gains the following improvements for that combat: +1 to its attacks, and gain the lethal. So, This would put you to 3 attacks, hitting on 4s. 2, 3. You become a guardsman, which isn't terrible. Well, a guardsman with rending, to be fair. But with that said, you've kind of got to think, why are you taking a curse might? What's the point? Well, you're not really taking it to fight things, to be honest with you. Because that's great. It's great that he can hit as hard as a guardsman, but he's got 2 wounds. You are only attacking with these models when you know when you guarantee you get that first hit and finish off an already wounded model. You are never attacking otherwise. That's the curse might. We then look at the Ice Stinger Swarm. This is the go-to, not because it can kill. Nothing can kill. You're not looking to try and kill things. This guy stuns. You have 5 attacks hitting on 6s, 0, 0, range 6, no cover, stun. This is all you are ever doing with this model. You are... Oh, sorry. When it's relevant, when it's possible, this is what you're doing. The reason for this is that the way stun works is all you need to do is roll 1, 6, and you have 5 dice, so it's not impossible. 5 dice, roll a single crit, a single 6, and the enemy is -1 APL. I think something that is going to be very common for these Ice Stinger Swarms is you will, wherever you are, you will shoot somebody within range. Just, why not mess with their APL? And then charge someone and be in melee. Who are you going to charge with both the Ice Stinger Swarm and the Curse Might? Good question. You are going to charge whoever your Hulks are charging. And we will talk about that in a moment, but basically all of the Hulks generally hit on 4s. And they don't have that many attacks, they have 4 attacks. Which means that roughly they're hitting twice. And there's very few things that you're killing in a single hit. So what will realistically happen is you will get parried. And then you won't die because you're a beast, but you're also not killing. So you need one of these little guys who are going to be fast with their 3 circle move and fly, so they can go wherever they need. They're faster than the Hulks, they can get to where they need to go. But you need them in with the Hulks so that you can actually hit on 3s. That's the purpose of these. That is the only purpose of these. Except the Ice Stinger Swarm has a little bit more utility than the Curse Might, because the Ice Stinger Swarm can stun. The reason these guys are listed under the Assault, even though you do not want to do any damage with them, really these are tech. Oddly, these should be tech, but I've put them as Assault, because the first thing you need to do with them is charge them up the board to make sure that they charge before the Nightmare Hulks charge. Okay. Now we looked at the ranged. I put this guy here because there's nowhere else to put him, and he's one of the only 2 ranged things. I don't think you're ever taking this guy for the reasons just discussed. However, let's look at what he does. So he's still GA2, which is nice, but he's movement 2 circle. Again, 2 wounds. Single hit from anything, dead. Your star ability here is Acid Spit. 4 attacks hitting on 4s, 2, 2, pistol range, AP 1, splash 1. Now that's not terrible, right? AP 1, splash 1. You're essentially 2, 3. And if anyone's within 1 inch of the enemy, they take splash. They take a mortal wound. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. And Caustic Demise, if you get blown up, if you get splatted, then on a 4-up, anyone within 2 inches of you, or enemy, so you can't hurt your own guys, takes a mortal wound. They're not nothing when it comes to damage. However, in reality, you also have to ask, okay, well, what are they? 4 attacks hitting on 4s. These are easy maths. That just means half it. So you're hitting twice. Damage is 2, 2. Statistically, you're not getting a 6. Right? So you are 2, 2. You're hitting for 4 damage. The enemy's going to save... If they have cover, they're going to save 1 automatically and then save 1 on the armor roll. So you do nothing. If they don't have cover, you will do 2 damage. Doing a single roll of 2 damage from a Sludge Grub is not as good as making your Nightmare Hulks hit +1 in melee. That's the simple maths of it. There you go. The Sludge Grub will also be harder to use because they're not as mobile. Okay, I feel I've done an okay job of explaining the mutoid vermin to you. That's the mutoid vermin, alright? Hopefully you agree with me. If you don't, let me know. If I've got it all wrong, let me know. Maybe the Sludge Grub turns out to be an absolute beast. And he actually, you know, there's a way to buff him so that he does better than I think he does. Who knows? Let's go to the tanks. That's right. The big boys. Okay. First up, we have the Bloat Spawn. This guy, right, so all of these Hulks have the ability of Nightmare Hulk, which is, if you wanted to perform the pickup action, it costs +1 APL. Light terrain and operatives with 15 wounds or below do not provide cover. Let's repeat that again. Light terrain does not provide cover. This is interesting. Okay, this thematically makes total sense. Obviously they're huge, so them hiding behind a tiny barricade would be silly. Them hiding behind a tiny barrel, ridiculous. But very interesting. It means it's going to depend heavily, even more heavily than most occasions, what map you're playing in. Now keep in mind, if you're playing Into the Dark, basically irrelevant because there's very little light cover in there anyway. Okay, so let's go through what they have. First up, let's look at the weapons. So this guy actually has, well, let's call it a pistol. It's a 3-inch range with fusillade. It's mutant tentacles, 6 attacks, hitting on 4s, 3/4. This is fine, I guess. It's not amazing. I think the reason to have this as like, so obviously he's got this for thematic reasons. I don't think you're really meant to like position to use this. However, if you happen to get a kill in melee, and you are in a position to just, you know, there's someone nearby on an objective, you want to take them off it, mutant tentacles, you don't need to charge, because you fight as your first action, you're only APL 2, boom, mutant tentacles. 18 wounds, I already mentioned that, but just keep that in mind. But it's not just 18 wounds, is it? No, sir. It's 18 wounds with revoltingly resilient. Now, there's also the trade-off that let's just, you know, you're a 5-up save, and never taking light cover. Of course buildings exist, it depends how dense your board is, how heavy terrain filled it is. But even regardless of that, revoltingly resilient is, you know, a third more wounds. So actually, you're looking at like 26 wounds. That's what these guys are practically going to be. It's a 26 wound model. Okay, so Tentacled Grasp. If the enemy falls back on a 4+, 3-up if they're wounded, they do not fall back, and they do not get their APL back. That's really good. That's really good. It's pretty trolly, because let's be honest, against a lot of these Hulks, most models will not want to fight you. Unless you've been whittled down by plasma, nobody wants to perform a fight action on these because they know they're dead. So stopping them from just straight up putting them on a 50-50, by the way, you might be screwing your activation. Pretty good, I've got to say. For you, not for them. Not for them. So yeah. And then we have Swipe. So, let me read the Mutant Claw and Tentacles. So you have 2 profiles. They're the same ballistic skill, weapon skill, and the same damage. But Grasp and Slash has 6 attack dice. Writhing Swipe has 3 attack dice, except with Writhing Swipe you perform a fight action against every model in engagement range. So first things first, you would never use this unless you are up against at least 3 models, ideally more. You also don't want these to be good models, obviously, because otherwise they'll probably kill you. However, yeah. So, we all know that Fusillade sucks, right? This is kind of like melee Fusillade in that you're losing the number of attack dice, but you're still forced to hit. So let's look at the reality of a Writhing Swipe. 3 attacks, hitting on 4s. You're going to hit once. So great. And you know what? You're not killing anything with a 3-4 damage. 1 hit. You need at least 2 hits, preferably with a crit in there. And if you're swiping, maybe you will have combat advantage against one of the models, but not all of them. I think in reality, the only time you would ever use writhing swipe is if you're charging into 3 or more already heavily wounded models. It's cool that it's there, but I think actually what you're going to do more often is you're going to use grasp and slash. You're going to put one of your Eye Stinger swarms into engagement range of another, and you're going to use that, because 6 attacks hitting on 4s with an Eye Stinger swarm, 6 attacks hitting on 3s, you're killing stuff. Great. And if you need to kill a second model, you're just using your Tac Op to fight again. Boom. Tac Ploy, sorry. Writhing swipe, more like writhing, don't swipe. Okay, we then go on to the Flesh Screamer, or the Flesh Creamer, if you will, and the Lumberghast. So we'll do the Flesh Screamer first. So keep in mind that all of these are different things, so different loadouts. Same stats, different weapons. So you have a Mutant Fist and Cleaver. Again, you have 2 options to pick from, one of them being amazing. In fact, this is the strongest attack in the game right here. So you have Bash and Slash, which is 5 attacks hitting on 4s, 5, 6. And then you can alternatively choose Lopping Blow. 1 attack, hitting on 3s, 8/9. Lethal 5 up. So this is the only way in the game to get 9 damage. There are other ways to get 8 through buffs and stuff, but I believe in melee this is the only way to get 9 damage. Or 9 damage on a single dice, whether shooting or melee. It's a tough one, right? 1 dice. So obviously you've got to think about, okay, well, who's this going into? Why would I use this? Well, if you're going to kill something in 1 hit for 8 or 9 damage, this is cool against Harlequins, Void Dancers, because that's within their range. But you know, if they have Prismatic Blur up, and they 4-up away your hit, yeah, that's going to be rough. Yeah. I think in reality you're going to be using Bash and Slash, but Lopping Blow is super cool. You know, it's good against a lot of the 7 wound models too. Being 8/9 does mean that it can push into one-shotting the leaders as well, which is pretty cool. So if you've got a Vetgar leader there, he is going to have a plasma pistol power weapon. Power weapon can still do some serious damage. You might want to consider Lopping Blow. We then go over to Hot Firing Shriek. This is the Flesh Creamer. If the enemy performs a pickup action within 3 inches of this model, it costs 1 more APL for them to do that. And if they are within 2 inches of this model, then they count as -1 APL when it comes to holding objectives. There you go. That's what Hot Firing Shrieking is. Right. Then over to the Lumberghast. Now this is a much more normal weapon. 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, 6/7 brutal. It's just a classic power fist, essentially. In fact, yeah, that is exactly a power fist. Obviously, as mentioned, you are really looking at getting one of your Eye Stinger swarms in there, so you're hitting on 3s. That's really how all of these Hulks should be played. Notice they are all hitting on 4s. It's a huge negative, like it's really bad. But they also have Spike Charge, which is every enemy in engagement range after you charge takes D3 mortals. Now, this is important because I believe this is the same as the Chaos Ogryn from the Blooded. But I think, just off the top of my head, that the Chaos Ogryn is 1 model takes D3. This is every model. So when might you use this? You might use this alongside Barge. Charge this guy into as many models as possible. They all take D3 mortal wounds. This means any normal guys are an instant 1-hit kill because they take at least 1 wound from your spike charge, taking them from 7 wounds to 6, and your normal damage is 6. That is a guaranteed kill. Very nice. We then go over to the Tac Ops, if you will. So we have here the Glitchling and we have the Gellerpox mutants. The Gellerpox mutants, there are two loadouts here. One of them has the heavy axe. Two of them have the improvised weapon and mutated limb. The heavy axe is actually pretty decent. It's only 3 attacks, but it's hitting on 4s, 4-5, brutal. You could almost consider this guy to be a little bit of a killy miniature Hulk, if you want. Like, a 4-5 brutal is pretty good. You're still going to need him to be hitting on 3s. Really? 3 attacks isn't very reliable. You want that hitting on 3s. They all have frag grenades, which is cool, but let's be honest, frag grenades aren't actually that killy, you know? And then they also have Gellerpox masks. Crit becomes normal hits. It's a great defensive op. So this guy is actually... Okay, so think about this. He's 7 wounds. Not many, but he does have a 5-up feel no pain. He also can never be critted. And if you also use emanating rust, then the enemy counts as being injured. He suddenly becomes really very tanky. -1 to the enemy's weapon skill, ballistic skill. Well, weapon skill, sorry. 5-up feel no pain. You could just parry. If you just accept he's going to defensive stuff, parry away the hits, you've 5-up feel no pain, there at -1 BS. This guy is actually really tough to kill. Great for defense. We then go over to the Glitchling. So the Glitchling doesn't do anything, really. He's 3 wounds, GA2. His weapons don't matter, they're irrelevant. We then go and look, he does have, however, a 5-up feel... he does have a 5-up feel no pain, but he also has a 5-up invuln save. And small means that he's always concealed. So even to a vantage point, he's concealed. Very similar to a Gene Stealer's ability. And that's it, that's them. Oh, not quite. We then have the big boy himself, Volgrar Thrice Cursed. What an absolute beast. This is your leader. And why have I put him as a tech, not a tank or an assault? That's weird, isn't it? What was I smoking? Was it the crack? Was I tapping the crack pipe hard? 19 wounds. And I'm saying, leave him at the back of the board. What? Glass, what? Damn. That crack is spiked, mate. Why? Let's read his weapons. Pyre Gut. 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, 3-3, range 6, torrent 2. Torrent 1 circle. 2-inch. That's not a bad flamer. In fact, that's a really good flamer. In fact, I think that's the second best flamer in the game. And I'm still saying leave him at the back. Flesh melded weapons, 5 attacks hitting on 3s, 4-5, engineered. Engineered, allow me to read it to you. When this operative is selected for deployment, select up to 2 of the following improvements for this weapon to gain for the battle. You can either be add 1 to the normal damage, add 1 to the critical damage, gain balanced, gain brutal, gain lethal 5-up, gain rending. Interesting. But what's the best? It's a good question. So you've got to think about who you're going into, right? If you're going into Guardsman, that's sweet 7, you want brutal and balanced. You always want balance. Balance is really good. There you go. If you're going to Guardsman, you want brutal. If you're going into anything else, you want +1 normal. Why would you want +1 normal? Because it allows you to kill anything apart from Marines on 2 hits. Likewise, it allows you to kill Marines on 3 hits, and that doesn't change whether you're getting normals or criticals. Into Guardsman, the reason you'd be looking at brutal is so that you can get a crit and a hit. Nothing changes that. However, it does mean that if you fluff the roll, they can't parry you away. Yeah, there you go. And balance is just a reroll, which is just always useful, especially when you're only hitting on 3s. Helps you not fluff the roll. Really good guy, really good guy. But we have to look at Lead the Infection, right? So, firstly, Thrice Cursed Hulk. That's right, he doesn't have Nightmare Hulk as an ability. He does have it as a keyword, so he can do all those things, but not as an ability. It's the same, so he can't take cover. Light terrain and operatives with the wounds characteristic of 15 or less do not provide cover. But he doesn't have the -1 to the pickup action. So he can still do things, which is good. And yeah, I'm saying keep him at the back. That's because of Lead the Infection. If you are within 2 inches of objectives for the first time at the beginning of the round, gain 1 CP. Sweet. Now, remember, there was a Tac Op that also requires you to perform an action on objectives. So what I'm saying is, look, I'm telling you to take Seek and Destroy. I'm telling you to run this as a melee heavy team. But you're still doing all of that to score VP. You're not doing it to kill things. I mean, okay, killing happens to be a byproduct, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to score VP. So this guy, and this is going to be a CP hungry team because you have some good ploys. He stays at the back for 2 turns. First turn, he stands on one of the objectives and actions. That gives you a CP and gets you close to a VP. He goes to the other objective near your deployment zone. He gets the second CP and performs the other action. At that point, you just need 1 and then 2 of your guys that have been charging up the board to action on one objective for 1 VP and another objective for a second VP. That's efficient. You've been farming CP and VP with this guy. I understand it's harsh to have such a melee powerhouse and to hold him back for 2 turns, but it's not that simple. You're playing the long game, but also don't forget that the enemy will be coming to you. You don't need to go to him. He is a huge defensive piece. Turn 1 and 2, he scores you stuff. He gets you CP. Turn 3 and 4, he's still 19 wounds, good to go. He kills any enemy that has come anywhere near your drop zone. Okay, and that's it. With that all said and done, I would like to say that if you've made it to the end of the video, hopefully you've enjoyed my impassioned speech about how to play Gellerpox Infected correctly, and I'd like to give you a big triple hello. Wow, so wholesome. Guys, if you've watched the end of the video, genuinely it helps a small channel like mine so much. Thank you very much. I'd like to reiterate once again, I do have a second channel called Full Scale Wargame where I talk about Warhammer 40k, War Machine, that kind of, you know, the full scale games as I call them. I have a Vantage Point podcast where you can hear me and somebody else talking about Gellerpox Infected. That's my latest episode. I also have merch, which I'm not wearing it today, but you can see it above me here. Super cool, super neat, I would say. I also have a Discord server where people talk about Kill Team, and then I also have a Patreon. Any support, super appreciated, because I really enjoy making Kill Team content, and the more support I get, the more stuff I can make, basically. Guys, I've really enjoyed this one. I think Gellerpox are going to be super good for everyone to play. I hope you've enjoyed them. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope to see you again very soon. And finally, I hope you've had a good day and continue to have a good day. Goodbye.